happy to be here today to introduce my great friend Lorraine and have a conversation with her about her extraordinary career and her extraordinary self. I had the great pleasure of spending 4 years with her doing a really extraordinary television show called Any Day Now. And the most common question that we got when we started that, and still to this day, I have people stop me on the street and say, "Can I ask you something? Are you really friends?" And I'm always so happy to say, we are. We're very, very good friends, and it seems to mean so much to people. Our friendship has certainly meant a lot to us, and the opportunity to work together. So I'm so happy to be on stage with her today. So, Lorraine, come on out here.
Supposed to be this way.
Oh.
Hello. Thank you for coming out in the rain. I was driving here thinking, I hope somebody comes. Hi. This is so interesting. You know, you do what you do, and suddenly, I guess you get to an age, certain age, and a certain amount of work, and you suddenly have something called a body of work. And you just continue to do what you do, and you don't kind of think about it. And then it's sort of all piled up there, looking at you, and every so often you flipping late at night and you see something you did 20 years and you go, wow, I'm aging, look. Interesting. Yeah, it's interesting to watch yourself over the years, to be lucky enough to watch yourself grow, mature, age-wise and work-wise. So maybe we'll talk a little bit about what the maturing factor is. Hi, Annie.
Hi.
That's my friend Annie.
We have lots of wonderful questions here that I think will take us right along. And then if anybody thinks of anything else that they want to ask, I think you have extra cards, you could write them down and pass them up. Anyway, this is a good one to start with. What is the heritage of your name?
Ooh, Toussaint Louverture. He was a warrior slave who overthrew Napoleon's army and kicked some major ass in Haiti and retreated to the hills and created a community called the Maroons, which are still in those hills, I think. And I think, and if he isn't, then I always say he is, because why not? In Haiti, because my grandfather is Haitian, my grandmother is Martinican, so it's French Caribbean. I was born in Trinidad. So it is definitely, my grandparents spoke only French. I speak some French very badly. So I'm also a colonized creature. So though it's French Caribbean background, I'm more British than the French, I think.
She's so British. She is so British.
In my tea making mostly. A proper cup of tea has to be very hot with milk.
I think Lorraine was the first black person I ever met that didn't just drink iced tea. It was like, what?
Why would you put ice in tea?
Well,
but going to the South, I also learned, there's one word, this sweet tea, which is one word. Sweet tea. Love sweet tea. Yeah. So yeah, that's me. Caribbean. I'm a Caribbean girl. I lived in the Caribbean for 10 years. I grew up there. My mother shipped me back every summer after that, like most proper West Indian children. You get shipped home. I grew up in a very rural island with no television, no. My mother was a pianist, though. And she was the first Montessori teacher to come to the Caribbean, to start a Montessori school there. So my mom was very unusually progressive. My parents were divorced, so I'm an only child, so I had my mom's focus to a great extent. But my mom was an artist. She taught art to Montessori kids. She taught art and music to deaf children. She was an extraordinary woman. She came to this country as a domestic. After that, in the 60s, you migrated to America. There was a program where you could come to America for 2 years. If you served as a maid or a housekeeper, you would get your green card at the end of that. So my very middle-class artist mother signed up and was a nanny for 2 years. That family didn't really know what they were getting in my mother. They thought they were getting a nice native girl. Not quite. And so she did that because she wanted a better life for me. And so she left me in Trinidad, as most immigrants did then, and came to America. And after 2 years, came back and got me. During those 2 years, she also studied to become a early computer operator at night and on her days off. What's that stereotype of West Indians? We do 12 jobs and, there's a certain level of ambition that my mother certainly had. She was a very focused woman.
Tell them a little, in starting out, because I know her story.
I'm going to surprise you.
After you came here, when your mother brought you back, and you were a latchkey kid, and what you did with the phone book, tell the story about the phone book.
This is how I became an actress. So I'm 10. And when you leave in the Caribbean, there's something under the British school system, there's something called common entrance, which is at 10, it's called an 11 plus exam. At a 10 or 11, you take this exam. All the children do it. It's really hateful. And that exam determines what direction you go in for the rest of your life. Wow. How well you do on that determines what level of higher education you go into. Whether you go into a vocational school if you don't do very well, if you get sort of taken out of school and go into sort of a local kind of something, or whether you get to be accepted into one of the really prestigious schools which lead to university. High pressure. By the time you're 9, you start studying nonstop for this. Your childhood basically ends. I was going to fail that exam really badly because that was the time when my mom was away in America. And I was a child in extraordinary grief. And that grief, back then, children were small animals. We were sort of had to earn the right to become human. So it's not like today where you actually cared what your child was thinking or feeling, or I didn't really assume that they had very many complex thoughts or complex feelings. They were to be seen and not heard. Yeah. There were certain things that, children just existed and behaved. But I was really in trouble. And so most of those years I spent staring out the window. And it was so unsafe there because there was a corporal punishment. You know, children were beaten in school. It was very normal. That was normal. I mean, it's not a... So I really crawled inside of myself. I'm setting this up. I'm telling you this for a reason. I really went into hiding way back behind the eyes. And I would take tests by literally just, I wouldn't even read the questions. I would just tick them off. I was in such trouble. So I wasn't going to pass that exam, and I knew it. And just maybe 6 months before that exam, I got the call. And this is the time also when, you know, we didn't have a television. I remember the first phone coming into the house where the operator would call. If America was going to call, my mom was going to call at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the operator would call us at 11 o'clock in the morning to say, you're expecting a long distance call at 3 o'clock. The phone will ring. It will be America. And we would all gather at 2 o'clock and watch the phone and wait and watch the phone, and it would ring, and there'd be a lot of shouting, hello? Yes? America? Yes. So one of those calls came, and they didn't come often. They came maybe, it was expensive. It was not like today. And so I got the call that finally my mother was going to come get me. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. So I escaped in the nick of time. And I came to America, and suddenly, I can't tell you how liberating that was. I could cry. Because I was suddenly, it was safe. And I was free. And I was now free to open all of the shut doors that I had bolted for safety. And I came to America, and my mother was a struggling single woman. We were living in Brownsville, Brooklyn, Lord have mercy. That in itself was a shock. Middle-class child girl, my first ghetto, hello. I was so not a ghetto child. And my mother would tell me, when you get home from school, as a latchkey kid, because she was working 2 jobs, lock the door. I'd walk home and she'd pin the key to the inside of my blouse. And I would get home, open the door, bolt the 12 locks on the door. And I would wait until around 10 o'clock till my mom came home. But it didn't matter. I was here. I was with her. It was okay. I was okay. So I read everything in sight because there was not much television. It was not so interesting TV, Casper the Friendly Ghost and, But I loved the Yellow Pages. The Yellow Pages was my favorite book because the Yellow Pages was thick and it had pictures and it had everything that was in America that I couldn't even envision or imagine. This brand new world was all listed here in this book. And so I really remember one day thinking, because at 11, I was already wired to think, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? And so I thought, well, now that I'm free, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? What am I going to be? Since I now, for the first time, had choices. And I thought the Yellow Pages could tell me what there is to be in America. And so I opened the Yellow Pages to see what I was going to do with the rest of my life. And I started at A and got to accountant, and I just escaped that. And it said acting. And I said, yes, I'll do that. That's what I'm going to do. And so there was a big ad on that page. I called the school and made an appointment because my mom was at work. This is truly really home alone. So I called the school, spoke to someone, made an appointment, and informed my mom when she came home. And I said, Mom, I'm going to be an actress. And we have an appointment. School was on Flatbush Avenue. And she said, well, huh? She said, no, we can't afford it, honey, but it doesn't make sense. What is this based on? I said, I just know I'm supposed to be an actress. Anyway, about 6 months later, my mom and I were going to a wedding. And we were going to go buy dresses. My mom was buying a dress for herself and one for me. And I maneuvered it so we were going shopping on Flatbush Avenue. Yeah. And happened to maneuver it so we were walking past that school and said, Mom, this is the school I told you about when I made the appointment. And somehow I can see myself on the pavement in front of the school talking my mother into going up this huge flight of stairs. And she went up those stairs, sat me down somewhere in the lobby, and went in and talked to those people. And came back out and had taken the money she was going to buy her dress with and enrolled me in acting school. Yeah. And so the thing about that is that after 2 classes, when I was in Trinidad, on my report cards, it always said, talks too much, daydreams too much. Every report card. And after the first improv class, the second improv class, I was so perfectly wired for this world because I had lived in my imagination for years. My entire world for survival had been here. And so to exist in that world, I was home.
Just imagine if she'd gotten to the B's or the C's of the comedy. I mean,
I've gotten to those
so
later
many
in life.
things. Anyway, I love that story.
I do too, actually. I love that story because of my mom, to have a mother that, against any logic, trusts your child, to trust that they come here knowing something about themselves and being open and willing to listen to them because they already know what they're meant to do, what they're meant to deliver on this planet, and to not shut them down, even if you don't know anything about it. Trust them. I love my mom. Yeah. No, my mom is dead, but this nice gentleman just said, is my mom still with me? And the answer is yes. She's actually now more with me than she could ever have been in body. She's absolutely here.
You know what they say in the East, once the bottle is broken, the perfume is everywhere.
Everywhere.
Let's go to the next question.
That's what I love, Annie. Oh.
What has your greatest inspiration been throughout your career?
My greatest inspiration. I think me. I say that because I'm very internally, what's the word? Seeing. I'm very taken with me. And I say that in a non-narcissistic way. I'm really interested in me. I'm really interested in my inner workings. I'm really fascinated by this inner world of me. And I act for very personal reasons. And my process is very sacred.
Yeah.
And so my inspiration tends to be much more from the classical meaning of the word, which is to breathe in. It really is about the breath inside of me that I contact when I work, or when I go to choose a piece of work, or question the work, or it's a very internal process. Of course, I admire lots of people that I work with, that I see their performances I so admire, actors, of course. But inspiration it's really, I live in Malibu now, right? And I moved there for the ocean because it speaks to me. And I live in this funky little canyon that have got coyotes howling all night and owls hooting and singing, and there's every night something's getting killed out there. It freaks my dog out. He was like running around the house in the middle of the night going, "Arr!" I know, dude, you're okay. They're not here. They're outside because they're really close. But often I stand on my deck and there's this extraordinary canopy of stars that are so close. That's where my inspiration really lives. That's where I ask questions, that's where I get answers, that's where I take the work, that's the realm of my inspiration. So it isn't particularly externally motivated. That's the truth.
How do you process rejection? And then after they wrote thank you. So we know where you're coming from. How do you process rejection?
I cry. Last season, there was a part I wanted. It was on a show. Fuck 'em. Those motherfuckers made me test twice. They made me test. God damn it, the fuckers made me test twice. Those of you who have gone to network, it's horrible. It's horrible. The anxiety of it, the fear of it, the possibility. There's so much money. They're talking about so much money. You think, oh my God, I can get out of debt. I see my child's tuition. I see this. I see, you go, no, I've done how many series now, which means I've tested a gajillion times. Sometimes I don't test. Sometimes I do test. But sometimes, after 30 years, there comes a project comes along that you really want. And you try not to want it because it's unhealthy to want it, right? You kind of want it. This is good, this would be nice, but okay, I'm gonna do my work, I'm gonna invest in it, but you hold back some part of yourself. Last season, there was a part that I didn't, and it snuck upon me, and it was too late because I fell in love with it and attached myself to it. And The writer wanted me, the director wanted me, the studio wanted me, and some fucker at the network made me test for it. And then tell me I didn't get it. And then call the next morning to make me test again. But not just once, to go through the whole testing process, the whole thing again. And I did. And I'll tell you why you should never do that. I did it, but you should never do that. Because you can only lose the job then. But I did it because I wanted it. And then I didn't get it. And I just took to my bed. I just cried and took to my bed. For at least a day, I give myself permission to feel it fully, to weep. And I did. And it means that after 30 years, I can still fall in love. And my heart is still open to the work. And it can still get broken. And that's the good news. I'd rather have that than not.
Because then you can go back to that when you need inspiration.
That's correct. That door stays open. Because if you close the door, you close it to joy and to pain. You cannot close the door. But there's a process, and here's why. Because you know this as actors, there's a time when the audition process exhausts itself. In preparing for the audition, you can activate aspects of the what's needed for the emotional life of the audition, which is a beginning, a middle, and an end. It is the preparation of a performance where there is still process exposed. Not so much when you're testing anyway, but that's even harder. But then, after that process, after you exhaust, you get to that audition performance, my body, psyche, after I've exhausted that, begins to shift. And it begins to shift into true process. I start digging for things. I start looking for nuances. I start investigating in ways that will not serve an audition because my being is now moving into preparing the role. And it's instinctive. And once you've turned that corner, you can't go back because you're now beginning to, the psyche goes, okay, now this is the next step. Let's start to dig into this. Let's start to pull this apart. And then it gets messy. And then it gets unwieldy. And then it's not clean anymore. It's not supposed to be. And then to have to present that, to try to hold, it's like trying to hold on to Jell-O. And you've got to just let it go until it molds again and becomes something else. If you have to audition again in the midst of that, you're fucked. Don't do it. I've often said, no, I can't. I won't come back in. I won't come back in. I can't come back in because now I can only lose the job now because I've shifted.
I know exactly what you're talking about with that. I also think when you're going in on that stuff, often they really want results. They want to see and once after you've done it once, then you move into that messy thing, and that just confuses them.
Oh God, it confuses them. They don't see the brilliance in that. They see, what happened to her? She was so good the last time.
It's like, because sometimes when you go in that first time, it's just down and dirty. It's like, this is
Bam.
what I've got. Then that's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Hit it hard. Move on.
What, and quit show business? Okay. This is from Laura. I haven't been saying who these are from. Thank you. Did Juilliard prepare you for the biz side of acting? And if so, how? If not, what did you do as an actor to prepare you for the audition, agent, manager world? How do you navigate your career? Do you have a lot of help? What do you advise an actor to do to get experience, to be better prepared for the audition process? Wow, Laura, you want a lot. Lorraine?
I do have help. I'm a single mom. I have an 8-year-old. I need help. Sure. I need help in my life. I need help to do the work, to make space to do the work. Sure. The older I get, I do have help now to sort of do lines, because I swear to God, the older you get, lines get harder to learn. That's just a fact. They just get harder to learn. I used to have a photographic memory. Look at it once, it's done. Now I actually have to study the lines, which is really challenging. It's not so much challenging, it's unusual. I'm not accustomed to having to study the lines. Yes, I work at it. I work at it. There's no substitute for it. There's nothing else. You have to work at it. You get the audition, you've got to work at it. And the better work I do, the better it is. Basic work. Who am I? What am I doing? Where am I going? What do I want? How am I getting it? Blah, 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 blah. You do the work. What is this connected to? What emotional body? What memories? Emotional life? Do I need to? What kind of recall is this? Substitution? Blah, 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 blah. You write it in, you plug it in, you make notes, you plug it in, you layer it in. I always talk about preparing a role is like cooking. Annie and I used to, when we did Any Day Now, mostly we'd sit on set and talk about food, because we just talk about
Well, we both love to cook.
whatever we were cooking next and whatever recipes we were. And he's a great cook, and so am I. And so we just talk food.
It had its purpose, though. There was a reason.
What?
It's creative.
Oh yeah, it was good.
Yeah,
we liked it.
It's all the same. I just think it's all the same. It's cooking, doing a bowl of flowers, whatever you're doing.
Exactly right.
Acting, it's like,
Exactly
we do a scene and look at each other and go, needs a little more of something else.
Yeah.
It's not quite
exactly
there.
Right. It's not quite there.
I tasted that. It's not right. Here, you taste it.
It's not right. You taste it. Can we do that one again? And so, or we'd go, yeah, you hear the music in it? Yeah, it's finally got music now, doesn't it? Because it's like all the notes we laid out, and then suddenly we go, oh, great, we got music. We got music now.
All of a sudden you've got dessert in front of you, and
Yeah.
it's like, that's the best thing I ever had.
Yeah, exactly.
That was right on.
That was right on. And so oftentimes I prepare the work like I cook, which is on first reading, you have a clear sense of what the dish is. Is it a cake? Is it a stew? Is it something frosted and lovely? Is it something roux-y? Is it dark? Is it deep? Is it sweet and light, fluffy? You determine what it is. And then you read it and you determine the ingredients. What are your ingredients here? A little bit of pain, a little bit of angst, a little rejection, a little bit of disappointment, a little bit of madness, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. You start to pull the ingredients. You lay them out. You determine them. And then you start to lay, which is the foundation of this character? What's the flour? What's the butter? What's the sugar? What's the basic stuff of it? And then you mix that up and you go, okay, that's good. That's a good That's a good setting for this. That's good. That's the right consistency to begin to put in the really delicate things that you mix in, that you taste, and you run it through your system and go, no, I need to be able to access that more. So I think I'll put that in second to last, because I need to cover it over, but have it by the surface, have it close to the surface. Okay, so I'm going to pepper it with a little bit of this so that at any point I can pick those out. I can pick out some childhood memories. So you pop those in, and you know where you put them. And you put it, and so then you start to put it together. You put it together, but layer by layer by layer by layer by layer. And then you take it to set. Because that's the baking. You need the unknown ingredients. You can only provide some. There's always that unknown ingredient, and sometimes there are several that you have no idea what it is. But you think you know what it is. You know what you've brought to the table. You think you know what you've brought to the table. But then Annie comes along, and she is going to serve it up with some sweet tea. And she's going to serve it up with some, and she's got this, and suddenly there are these other things that contribute to it, that sets the temperature in the oven, that infuses it with, and so oftentimes, and I also want to leave enough space where I get surprised. I want to be surprised by what it turns out to be. I think it's a cake, maybe a souffle. I know it's a baked good, but it might be a sweet bread. It might be. So, yeah, you do your work, and there's no substitute for that, and there are no shortcuts to it, and each ingredient has to be put in intentionally and layered in, or you get to set, and you're on the 12th take, when it's gone dry, you know that you can reach in and pull out. You have enough things in there to keep you salivating, keep you fresh with a new sensation, a new taste, but it's still the same. You've brought that, because you've got to keep it fresh, take after take.
You know what I'm reading in Laura's thing here too is I think she wants to know if, I mean, we all hold Juilliard as sort of, up as the
Mecca.
it's the Mecca. It's like, wow, if you went there, then you got, is it all that? Did it help? Did it give you your foundation for this? Did you
Well, I can do the best North Highland accent that you can imagine that a black woman can do. I am very good at the North Highlanders.
And has that been super useful to you?
It's been very useful. Listen, there's nothing that beats sharpening this instrument, that beats creating the facility to pretty much do anything. Anything that you put in front of me, I could probably do. I may not be right for it, but I can do it. I can break down any accent phonetically. I did a role at Juilliard once where you only do this in your 20s when your body's really great. I was naked on stage for a very long time. I was playing Juana. It was from a Russian play called something, I don't remember. And I was playing
Naked in a Russian play?
Wait, you haven't heard anything yet. I was playing, the play was set in Paraguay. I was playing Juana, the Paraguayan native girl, who was beloved of El Presidente. El Presidente fell in love with Juana because Juana, as it turned out, had been raped by extraterrestrials. And after the horrible E.T. rape, Juana was left speaking only in tongues. Only in tongues. And so I get the script. And the script says, everyone is talking. I have my brother who is by my side. And it says El Presidente's lines, my brother's lines. And then in the script it says, Juana speaks. That's all it says. And then my brother translates what Juana says. And then it says, Juana speaks. And my brother translates what Juana says. And I said, where are my lines? They said, well, you have to make those up. You have to create those. So for this entire role, in tongues, I had to create an entire role, half of which I was naked on the stage, speaking in tongues consistently every night, because there had to be cues, lighting cues, actor cues. My brother had to know when Juana was done speaking every night and what Juana had said. So based on what my brother was saying, I had to work backwards to then create. And Juana was always upset because whenever she was speaking, it was about the extraterrestrials. So I then, for a semester, created a language based on basic phonetics, based on Croatian, Japanese. I remember my first line. Serutni glogski sid, jefi radiorajemski sid. Portuguese. And so I found all these different languages, and based on Juana's state, was able to craft what she said. And then write out my language phonetically so that I could then give it to the other actor as for cues. So every night it was the same. That's Juilliard. Yeah. That's Juilliard. It took me several years to unlearn Juilliard. Because at the end of the day, you've got to let all that crap go. But it's wonderful because I've got it. It's like sitting at a table and eating with your hands, but damn it, I know which fork to use.
This is from Deborah. She wants to know, she has a couple of things. She wants to know if you teach your preparation process, and have you ever considered writing a book about your preparation process? In the 20 plus years, this is clearest I've ever heard a process relayed. This is a late card that came in, so she's commenting.
Thank you for that. That's a lovely compliment. My process at this point is like breathing. It's like asking you, how do you breathe? How does it feel going through your nose? How does it feel going into your lungs? And how does it feel exhaling? What is the process of your inhaling and your exhaling? It's difficult. It's possible. It would be fun. I can do it. I wouldn't want to write a book about it. I'd rather talk about it, maybe. I'd rather write books about other things. I've got some books in me that I want to write about other things in life that I'm also passionate about. But the process, what can I say about process that's fast? Here's what I think about process. When I played Any Day Now with Annie, playing an attorney, for example, each role has a key. Each role has a key. Once you find the key to the role, with Renee in court, the key I found, and I got an award from the Bar Association for this, actually. I was really proud of this. I know, I thought, me and a judge were up there getting awards. It's like, oh my God, this is very cool. You never ask a question without knowing the answer. And it helps to be smart as an actor. It really helps to be smart. And when I say that, I really mean that. It means read, get smart, get really, really smart. Because as you're dissecting a role, it helps to be really, really smart. Like with Renee, knowing that I never asked a question without knowing the answer. And then being smart as an actor was setting myself up because, so much of acting is mind fucking. You're just constantly finding ways to distract your ego so that interesting things can happen. So you give the ego a job. You send it off on a chase to get information. So I would send the ego part of me off to get information that looked like, okay, what are the questions? What are the answers? What do I know? But then the secret part of me, while my ego is doing that, is also setting up, where are the places where you get surprised by the answers? Where are the places where you're caught unawares? Where are the places where you can set up, where you've got a secret that you can plug in that's going to catch the ego and shake it up? So it's like operating on different tracks within yourself so that you are setting yourself up so that you can, the self surprises the self. But you've got to know the different parts and how to handle them. The ego, I must send away. I've got to give it a job. The job of that is to go on a reconnaissance mission. But the emotional part of it is, what am I investing in this case? This clip you probably just saw, what are those childhood memories? Where does the emotion all but topple the professional? Where does it come so close to the surface that it wants to bowl over the lawyer? Where does the lawyer start to lose footing? And because the woman has pushed through and she's suddenly becoming extremely unprofessional, and where's that tension? How do you create that tension in the being? So you turn up the volume on the emotional childhood memory parts, and you really engage the ego that, no, I've got this. Renee Jackson says to herself, no, I've got this. I'm prepared. I'm the professional. I've got this, which makes her even more fragile because she's got it, because she's rigid. The more rigid I make her in those scenes, the more vulnerable and likely she is to crack. So you prepare a level of rigidity for this scene while you've prepared a level of extraordinary, Sally Field used to say, when you get a role that's going to be really painful, and you know it, you quietly take a razor and you start slashing yourself. You start just in your daily being, in doing the dishes, washing the children, you just start nicking yourself. You just nick. And you just keep doing it. And that nicking is accessing. Where is it? Nick. So that when you walk on set, you don't have to act. You are raw. You are raw. So you bring that and you cover it. And you cover it. And you layer in the cover, and the harder the shell of the cover, the more brittle it is. And then you step back and watch the struggle.
We actors all have highs and lows. Kenneth Turin gave your performance in Middle of Nowhere a rave. How do you handle these highs, and how do you come back from your lows? And I want to pair that with another one that came in. You can weave this in if you like. How did you get the role of the mother in Middle of Nowhere, and what ingredients did you pull to create that mother? So tell us a little bit about this role in this wonderful film, and how you got that role.
I don't read reviews at all, usually. I did read Middle of Nowhere ones because they kept coming to me, and I had a vested interest in those. They were lovely, really lovely. So the highs and lows, I don't have very many highs and lows. I just do the work. I do the work and I don't look back. I do the work and I don't even look at the product. I don't look at my work. It's not that interesting, and mostly it's painful because it's like, and when I think of Any Day Now, for example, there's so many days and nights that I have memories of. Thrilling days and nights of Annie and I pinching each other and set going, oh my God, how did we get so lucky? This is so much fun. There are no highs and lows in terms of the product. There are highs and low days on set. Annie's and my show was a high. Saving Grace was an all-time low because it was a very painful creative process. That was a difficult time. It was a difficult set, and I'm getting too old for difficult sets. I have no interest in that anymore. It's about the process, completely about the process. How did I get this role in Ava's film? Ava called me and said, I want you. She said, I couldn't find you. Where are you? You're nowhere on the grid. She's made me join Facebook since then, and I now tweet or whatever that is now. She called and said, I've been looking for you. I want you to play this part. I've always wanted you to play this part, and it was so flattering. And I read it and read maybe 6 pages of it, and thought, this is the best role I've ever read, because so little of it was on the page. Just enough was on the page that I knew there'd be so much space to fill it. And the ingredients of this role, Annie knows this woman in my life, is my Aunt Yola. My Aunt Yola is sort of an homage to women who love fiercely and don't know how to necessarily express it. The desperation of that loving, of that kind of sacrificial loving that we as mothers and our mothers and their mothers have engaged in on our behalf. And oftentimes it's uncomfortable and unpleasant and God knows unattractive. I liked this role because it was not a vanity role. It was one of those roles where, and we shot that in 16 days. And it was tough, fast, guerrilla filmmaking. But the older I get as an actor, the more willing I am to expose myself. Maybe not so much physically, but emotionally. But it was one of those where, how real can it be? How real can you make it? How real do you dare to have it be? How willing are you? Just how naked can you dare to allow yourself to be? And then that's why it's always you and yourself. It's always with the self. How far am I willing to go? How much truth am I willing to tell? How unself-conscious can I allow this work to be? How braless can I go and let my titties just go? Oh, Lord, no, am I going to wear that nice bra that makes it look like I'm sort of kind of not wearing one? Or you're really going to slump it down there and just be? And oftentimes being is not pretty, but it's beautiful. It's beautiful because it's recognizable. You know truth when you see it. You can smell it, you can taste it, and it bypasses the brain and shoots into your heart. And you cannot deny it. And it leaves behind the mind that judges. Because by the time you get to judging it, you've already experienced it. It's too late. And as an actor, to be able to be in an age where vanity really begins to lose its hold on you. It's really freeing.
For an actor with your credits, how do you recommend marketing yourself when your agent isn't doing enough?
Oof.
In your career, have you found a lot of work for yourself, or has your agent been your key promoter?
I don't know about how do you do that agent thing, and the marketing thing, I'm really bad at it. I'm really, really bad at it. I finally just hired a publicist for the first time in so many years because this little film that we're doing is got buzz, and I just got a nomination for a Spirit Award, which was really cool. Isn't that cool? I'm really excited about that. I'm not even going to be cool about it. It's really nice. But I suddenly have a publicist after, not since any day now have I done, and I'm not good at it. I'm good at it now because I kind of see the game in it and I'm actually kind of enjoying it. It's best to enjoy it and not take it terribly seriously. But I think if I'd played that game better, I would probably have reaped more rewards at this point in my career because This is a business, and that part of it is a game part of it, and I've never been particularly interested and very good at it. So I don't recommend you necessarily go my route. That's just been the route. I've been so selfish with the work. I've just really done it so much for myself. But if you play the game, you get more work. Sometimes. Or something. I don't know. It's too much to think about. I just live the life. You know? It's too much. It's too much. I'm grateful I do the work. I get to do what I love to do, and I live the life. The life is good. The life is important. The life I know. I know that. That's real to me. An agent, if your agent isn't working, I don't know, fire them? Fire them. Fire them. Go in and talk to them. I recommend you be very, very candid. You're not working for me. This is not working. This is not working. I have gifts to deliver on this planet, and if you can't fucking get me in the room. I was a New York actor in 1990. I was with a little tiny agency, and I wanted to go with the bigger agency, Triad at the time. And I wrote a letter to Triad. And I said, I need you. I need a better agent. And frankly, you need me. Because I can make you a lot of money. You get me in the room, I'll get the job. But you've got to get me in the room, because right now I'm not getting in the rooms, and I need you to get me in the room, and I will get you money. I will get the job. I wrote them that letter. Just like that. And they called me in and said, okay, go ahead. We'll sign you. Anybody that says that, I challenged them.
And did they get you in the room?
They got me in the rooms.
Did you make them some money?
I did. A shitload of money. And that agent I've been with for the last 22 years. Loyalty in this business is rare. And when you find someone, it's like a marriage. It's better than a marriage, because that's lasted longer than both my marriages. I've been with Jonathan 22 years. I've not had a husband for 22 years.
Well, you know what they say, it takes a very good husband to be better than none at all.
And
That's not always true with an agent.
This is true.
Sometimes a bad agent is better than none.
better than no agent. So it's always better to get an agent before you leave an agent, too. Get an agent before you leave an agent. But, getting into this business now is so different than when we got into it. It's it's a different terrain now. I don't even know how to advise young people to get into this business anymore. Before then, we had the leagues. I got out of Juilliard. There were the leagues. All the agents basically lined up. We were presented. It was like a coming out party. We were ushered into this business so gracefully. It's difficult. It can be very difficult.
Let's see. This is from Eric. As an African-American actress, what responsibility do you take on in representing your ethnic community? Do you feel that you have a responsibility to do so?
Nope. Yes. Yes and nope. Nope. I have a responsibility to represent the human race.
Yeah. Yes.
I have a responsibility to tell the truth. I have a responsibility to not hide. I have a responsibility to show up fully. I have a responsibility to tell the story and serve. I'm a service person. I'm here to serve. I'm not here to hold up anything. I'm here to serve. I never think of myself as being black. I forget I'm black. most days, except for when I'm talking to my 8-year-old daughter and I say, you got a black mama. You can't do that. Then I remind her and I remind myself that I'm a black woman. People think I've chosen roles that represent the community. I've chosen roles that that speak to me, that I can serve. And my service is never black. My service is just human. Roles that serve. You know, when Annie and I did Any Day Now, we forged this. And we did a little show on the side. And it's none of our concern what that show does, although it's nice when it serves well. But it's not my concern. My job is to show up and fully and serve. And that's it. So, there are things I can do and things I can't do. There are things my spirit and my psyche can serve honorably, and there are things that it can't. I know it immediately. I go, oh, can't do that, can't play that role. And at different times in my life, it changes. When I cannot play a role that hurts children. I don't know, I can't do it. There are some things I know my psyche can serve well and not serve. So that's it.
Here's another Any Day Now question from Winter. Any Day Now is one of my favorite all-time shows. Can you talk a little bit about how that opportunity came about?
Oh, Annie can talk about this too. I'd done a little show, Nancy Miller and Gary Randall, who the Nancy Miller was the creator of Any Day Now. And I had done a short-lived show, a brilliant show called Exit Elves for ABC. It was then renamed Leaving LA. It was set in the morgue. It was a brilliant show, actually. It was way ahead of its time. We did 6 episodes. And while she was doing that, she said, I'm writing you another role. I'm writing something else for you. And then, my God, she presented me with Renee Jackson. And so she wrote it with me in mind. I was very, 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 very lucky and fortunate to have that. And then I met Annie, but I knew Annie's husband before I knew Annie, because Jimmy, her husband, is a wonderful director, and he directed me in a pilot where I played a Haitian woman who spoke mostly French, oh good Lord, spoke only French, who ran a Chinese restaurant, whose husband was an atheist and whose son wanted to be a priest. It was the pastor's wife. It was a wonderful pilot that, again, heartbreak. We were 2 days from starting the first episode. We'd been picked up. We were 2 or 3 days. We'd gone through wardrobe fittings 2 or 3 days before we started shooting. They pulled the plug. Yep. And then there was Annie. And we met almost like I don't know, I think it was the first day of shooting. I have a picture of us sitting on the sidewalk the first day of shooting.
Oh, I'd like to have that picture.
Okay, I'll get you a copy of the very first day of the very first scene we were about to shoot, or in the midst of shooting.
Well, I remember that day.
I did too. Yeah.
Sometimes you get a project and you're paired with somebody. I mean, often you get hooked up with somebody. It's like, oh my God, do I have to spend like 7 years with this person? I'm gonna kill myself. But we fell in so immediately and naturally as allies and friends. It was just, it was, you know, I mean, and you look at the show and it's so, I think it's so obvious. We got really, I mean, the forces of the universe really gave us a little grace, didn't they? Showered with grace there.
Grace.
It happens. Again, people love this Juilliard thing, you know? They got a good rep. Can you talk about your training at Juilliard? What was the best part and what was the most difficult part?
The best part was that I'd come out of the High School of Performing Arts. Yay, PA. And I, you know, based on my story, once I decided I was going to be an actor, that's all I did. So for many people, Juilliard was difficult because they were older, they had lives, they had some idea of their selves, they had a sense of self, independent of a conservatory. I'd been in a conservatory all my life. And so going from PA to Juilliard was a very easy progression. And I personally loved the discipline of it. I love discipline. I love freedom within form. I like the parameters that I like those parameters. I get really free once I've put up my parameters, once I know the outline of it. And so Juilliard was very strict. I mean, you got mask work, dance work, voice work, speech work, movement work, very little acting work, actually. They don't care if you, here's the thing about Juilliard, here's a myth about Juilliard. They don't care if you can act. They are not bringing you in as a good actor. They actually don't care if you're good as an actor. What they teach you to be is a great communicator. And there are ways of communicating and telling a story that, you know, doesn't matter if you're a good actor so much or not. It doesn't matter if you feel it or if you don't. It doesn't matter so much if you infuse it, if you don't. So in many ways, all of my method training, really, they could care less. It is a school that builds your instrument. Don't get it twisted. You want acting, go to NYU, go to Yale, do not go to Juilliard. They are training you for the classical theater. They are training you for Shakespeare and Shaw and Ibsen and Pinter and all of those highly technical theater styles. They are training the crap out of your body, your mouth. You are a fine-tuned instrument. They don't care about your music. They care about the instrument. They assume you're going to make some kind of music with it. That's up to you. So those 4 years, I personally, secretly kept acting. I kept acting secretly and personally. Many around me did not. Didn't matter. I think it's not necessarily the right training for most people. I think the world has changed. Because back then they used to poo-poo on TV. Can you imagine? They used to poo-poo on TV, and they probably still do. Because they're training you for the theater. And I don't know if that's right for all actors, because frankly, sometimes when you need to get your butt out to LA when you're young and firm and fine. And if you've got some talent, hallelujah. That's certainly one way. Because Juilliard is for the theater. You really are you are a theater actor. If you know that's what you want to be, then that's the training for you. But if you want to be on TV, if you want to be, go study method, study some sort of internal stuff, and then work out here. Because the television and film, those mediums don't require the training that Juilliard will give you. It really doesn't. Not in America. In England, in Europe, yes. Not in America.
Well, this is a segue into this. Well, since we know you need to come to LA when you're firm and fine.
Yes, you do.
So you can skate through when you're not.
That's correct. Because when you work in LA, here's the bad news. You will get theater work back in New York. That is what sucks. That's the sad, pathetic truth.
That's sort of new, though. That's a new trend.
Not 10 years. 10, 15 years. Because by the time we were doing
it's a generation.
By the time we were doing Any Day Now, it was starting to happen. You will do work on Broadway. Get yourself a TV show.
What advice do you have for an actor who's been trying to break in for many years?
Do something else, darling. Do something else. This is not the be-all and end-all. Do not allow your lives to be wasted. Don't let it get sucked up in this town. The thing I've learned as a human, I have so many passions, so many things that I am now passionate about. And maybe I can say that from this vantage point because I have worked and I don't have that void. And I do recognize that yearning that I see sometimes when it isn't happening, and it's heartbreaking. But if you can, find something else that you're passionate about. Because at the end of the day, it's about how passionately you have lived and how passionately and with what devotion you have served. And this is just one way to do it. And question yourself, what are you attached to? Are you attached to the service of it and the work and it being in the trenches? Or are you attached to the result and the bullshit stuff that goes with it? Which isn't bullshit. It's a lovely reward. But if you're only looking at the glitter and you're not looking at the substance, ask yourself, what are you really attached to? Because you can waste a life. You can waste years. If that door isn't opening and you've tried several directions, it may be you're in the wrong room. Find your life. Find your life. I'm so grateful to be alive. I'm so grateful to be alive, and I'm so grateful to be living and showing up in my life in so many ways. I can't say that enough. Do something else, man. Do something else.
There's perfect segue from Victor, who wants to know, what would you do different if you weren't an actor? Or what would you do if you weren't an
I used to
actor?
say I'd be a butcher because I used to love, I had a big crush on my butcher when I was very young. And I used to, on Franklin Avenue in Brooklyn, I grew up with a mother. That same mother then developed multiple sclerosis by the time I was 11. And so by the time I was 13, I was running a household. And I would do the shopping. And I'd go down to Franklin Avenue to my butcher. At the time, they had the little butcher shops. And I would stand there and watch my butcher. And back then, he'd take out a whole big slab of meat. If you wanted a steak, he brought out the whole slab and then he'd cut it out. And I would stand there and watch this extraordinary artist with the different knives, and he'd sharpen each knife and he'd wipe them. He'd choose his tools so specifically, like a little symphony, as he would carve this meat and give me what it is I wanted. And I loved to watch the butcher. What I didn't know then is what I was watching was artistry, the beauty of artistry. And again, you can be a butcher and serve beautifully. I loved to watch this man. And I thought, I could do that. I think I could be a butcher. I could be a butcher. Look how beautiful that butcher is.
And that's steady work.
People are gonna want meat. Now we get in the supermarket, unfortunately, that art is an almost lost art now. I'd be a gardener, I'd be a landscape artist, I'd be a writer, there's so many things I am passionate about. I would probably, I had my license as a spiritual therapist. I have lots of passions. I could spend days digging in the dirt. I love growing food and growing plants and designing. We could do houses. We have this fantasy life that we actually pitched a story to the networks, a show to the networks several years ago, a design show, because we love houses. We love to do houses. I'm passionate about children. God bless those families of those children. And God bless and send love to that young man, because he needs the love too. Because whatever life that gave rise to that act is a life that needs the love. He didn't get it, obviously, here. I am giving it to him now, because that is an act devoid of love. God bless them.
Also, see, they stack these up just right. Please share a fun or funny experience on a set.
On set? What a funny experience on set. A funny experience on set.
You could dish a little here. A little gossip, maybe. Some bad behavior. Is this what we're wanting?
Well, I'll give you a funny story in the theater. Maybe I can't. Funny in the set. I'm doing Midsummer Night's Dream on Broadway, and a great cast playing Titania, and Carl Lumley is playing Oberon. And A.J. Antoon, wonderful New York director, is directing it. God rest his soul, it was brilliant. And we're doing the Brazilian Midsummer Night's Dream. Joe Papp, God love you, Joe. Back in the old days, Joe wanted to do the entire canon before he died. And he started with, those were the great days. We were in rep with Midsummer in one theater, and Al Pacino was doing, and Martin Sheen were doing Julius Caesar in the other. Oh my God, these are great days. So I'm I'm Titania. They've hoisted me up in this bower, and again, lithe and lovely with a thigh hanging over the bower, and she's asleep in the bower, and Carl is under the bower doing an incantation, and it's Brazilian. So he's got the candle, and he's doing a kind of, the drums are going, and he's doing this incantation, and suddenly I hear the audience kind of titter, and I'm asleep in the bar, but I could always kind of look out at the audience because it's not well lit, and I happen to look down on the stage, and I say, and Carl Lumley's hair is on fire. He's doing the incantation with the flame, and he's gone down, and his hair is now, and he doesn't know it. And this little lady, and I'm watching this in the bar going, this little lady comes out in the front row, little old woman, and she grabs her purse and she runs up on the stage and she starts to hit him over the head with his purse to put the fire out.
Oh, those were the good old days.
And we're sitting there going, and he realizes finally, he says, you're on fire. He thanks her, and she sits back down. He keeps going. Oh, God, there are funny things that happen in the theater. There's nothing like live theater. And lots of those kinds of stories. But on set, it's not so interesting. There's too much money. They're too upset. They're too uptight. There's not a lot of hijinks going on sets. They're too stressed out.
What do you like to do when you're not working?
Take care of my daughter. I'm a full-time mommy. I like to take my daughter to school and bring her home and cook dinner. I cook dinner every night, and I cook. And I write, and I garden. I love to garden. I can spend hours, days. I'm a closet landscape artist. I've done other people's yards.
I told you she's so British.
I am. I love a good rose garden. I'm passionate about a lot of things. And I pursue them. And the older I get, there aren't enough hours in the day to do all the things I want to do. I want to do so much. I travel. I've seen half the world. My daughter has a passport. When she was 3 months, I slapped her on my back. And we go. We travel into Eastern Europe, Middle East, Japan, Europe, of course, Africa. We travel. I have a spiritual world that is important to me, just me, and I try to walk my talk. That pretty much takes up the whole day.
Gita would like to know if there have been any major changes, logistical or otherwise, in being a recurring or guest on series over the years. You've been a part of so many amazing shows.
Octavia Spencer, who won the Oscar last year. We were at an Oscar party last year, and she came across a crowded room, and she said, you probably don't remember me, but I did one day on Any Day Now, She said, I had maybe 3 or 4 lines. And she said, I never forgot it because you made me feel so welcomed and so important. And I remember you stopped to take because my hair was out of place. And you were behind the camera for my close-up, and you stopped it and came and fixed my hair. And then I did. And she said, I just wanted to thank you for that. And we get that all the time. When you are a host, when you're running a show, you are the host. And when the guests come to your home, it is important to be a gracious host. And you set the tone for the set. It's old school. Burt Reynolds taught me this when I was a wee thing. He pulled me aside and said, I'm going to teach you set etiquette. This is what you do. When someone stands in for your close-up, after they have served your close-up, you say thank you. You go over and you thank them. You always act better on the other person's close-up. If you had tears on yours, by God, bring it when it's their close-up. You act better. So I don't like being a guest in most people's homes in the television world because that is a dying art. Being a lovely, gracious host. But occasionally, when they are, I'm doing something now, which is quite lovely. I'm doing an arc on, I did a scandal with my girl Carrie, with baby Carrie. And I watched baby Carrie grow up. And she is a lovely host. I was very proud of her. I'm very proud of the way she's hosting. And I'm doing something now on a body of proof, and they're lovely. But oftentimes they're not. And so I do those rarely. They're good. They pay they pay the mortgage, the bread and butter. But I'm very careful where I accept those because the older I get, kindness is paramount. Graciousness is paramount.
It's also very instructive to learn to be a guest.
Yes, it is.
When I have found in the last 10 years, as roles frankly got scarcer for me, I had spent so many years being, and of course we keep saying it, but we keep saying it because it was so true for us. We had the most extraordinary set and relationship, not just with each other, but with the whole production, writers, everything. It was sort of ideal. It was just ideal in every way, and good work came out of it. And then after that went away, there were less roles to be leads in, and so I had to learn to be a guest. I had never really guested before, and there was a real learning curve to it. And yes, not everybody's a great host, and I thought, boy, if I have an opportunity again
to host,
it was a service to me to be put in that position, because then I knew, and then I went back. I thought, boy, was I in the host position before and wasn't thoughtful? Because now that I know what it feels like not to be treated in a thoughtful way, now I'll be keenly I'm really into that. But that's such a sweet question to ask and to know about. And there's a way when you are a guest, I think, to also be as instructive as you are when you're in the other position. It's
Just a word sometimes helps.
Yes.
Just a kind word to
That's
one
correct.
player.
Just a kind word.
Just a
Thank
kind
you.
word. It costs so little to be kind. It costs so little to be supportive. I don't know why it isn't just what we do. Because that engenders, I remember, that reminded me of a great story on Any Day Now. There was one episode we did when I was doing the Supreme Court. I was going before the Supreme Court for something, and I was standing in this marvelous courtroom that they'd built, and I had these long speeches, legalese, that is really hard to learn, and that's a skill unto itself. Lawyerese, policese, medicalese.
Good thing she went to Juilliard.
It's true, because when you get that role, you get those roles, you got to know. There's no substitute. That just has to be drilled, because the brain does not connect those. It doesn't have the connective synapses to put those combinations of words and syllables together in a natural way. The brain keeps pushing it out, going, no, it doesn't compute. This is not how we speak. This is not how we speak. And you've got to layer it in, that's just straight down drilling. Nothing fancy. You got to drill that stuff so that your mouth and your brain learn to put this together in a natural way. It doesn't want to do it. So I used to have these long speeches, and I'd say to Nancy Miller, 24 hours before we shoot, you cannot change a word. I can't do it, because it takes technical drilling. You cannot give me script changes a full 24 hours before I shoot. It's frozen. Whatever it is, that's what is in my brain and in my mouth. I cannot do. So there's one of these days, God, it was so long. There were 2 pages before the Supreme Court, and I was working, and we were going back to back, and you'd end one episode on a Friday, and you'd start another on a Wednesday, and you start the new episode on the Thursday, and you'd have a speech on Wednesday, and there'd be another speech that you'd start on the Thursday. And so just the technicality is really hard work. And I'm standing there that morning, and I'm just going, oh my God, I'm going over the words. I was frightened because there were so many words, and I hadn't had enough prep time to learn it. But I just had, down to the wire, I had to have it. And I get to the podium, and it's a big podium, and we're doing the rehearsal and the blocking rehearsal, and I've got props, and the prop guy, Butch. Remember Butchie? I'm working with his another friend, his assistant is now doing on the show, right? It's really lovely. And I look down at the podium, and in his spare time, the prop guy has typed out my speech for me and has laid it there as a gift. That's the loyalty of a crew. That's when your crew silently supports you, but that you earn. You earn that. And so I found Butchie in the room and he got you. I got your back.
This is a guy who did monster truck rallies on the weekend.
Yep. That's exactly right. That's why they call him Butch.
Have there been any jobs that you weren't that excited about initially, but ended up loving?
I'm sure. I've also taken jobs early in my career just for money, and I really stopped that really soon. Can't do that. Can't ever take a job for just money. It'll bite you in the ass. Ooh, that's a bad bite.
Is that point of no return?
Why'd you suggest that, sir?
Actually, I'll tell you why. The scene of the murder with the girl and the
Yes.
bodyguards,
Yes.
whatever. He worked so hard with that, but she's dead. She's still alive. And it was like a saw running into my shoulder when you did that. For a murder to suddenly fall apart of a dead body. You just bought it from somewhere else. I never forgot that.
Oh, wow.
I've never forgotten that.
Wow.
I want to know, because I got to know why it's tattooed in my brain.
I don't know. You know, it's a funny thing. The people love that film.
That scene.
That scene.
That scene.
Judge for Harvey Keitel pours all that acid on me. He was an interesting actor. Listen, there's a whole generation of method actors out there, and Harvey is one of them. God love him. That never break character, ever. There are several actors to do that, and you go to the makeup trailer, you go, "Hi, good morning," and a killer is looking back at you. A killer is looking back at you. No, I'm sure I am sure I've started something thinking, and it's turned out to be wonderful. But I
What
can't.
did you take one of those? Was that role one of those that you just did for the moment?
No, not at all. That was very early in my career, and I was very, very grateful to be doing a film with John Badham, who was very hot at the time, and Bridget Fonda. And I'd seen the French film La Femme Nikita, which is, I think, one of the great films. And I was really thrilled to be in doing that film because I loved the French film. No, yeah. No, I was much too young for that. I was just grateful. Yeah, that was good. Yeah.
This is from Marta. When did you realize and what helped you discover the types of characters that you were most compelled, is that right? Compelled to play? Compelled to play, and most skilled to perform? Go about focusing your strategy for auditions and casting as you built your brand/image.
You can forget that last sentence. The first part was very good.
No, the brand part is interesting because it ties in.
Okay.
When you're a young actor and you're just starting out, you're just grateful to get any kind of work. And it's important to take everything because you got to work. You got to cut your teeth. You've got to pay the dues. You've got to get the experience. You've got to learn. You've got to make the mistakes. You just take everything. You say yes, 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 I'll do that. Yes, I'll do that. Yes, I'll go there. Yes, I'll do that. Yes. And then you kind of got to dance with the lady that brought you to the party. This is what brought me to the party. I speak this way. I spoke this way when I was 6. I was always 40. I really was. I played my first half hours. I played Dougie Doug's mom in a half hour for Disney, Where I Live. I was 27. Dougie was 23. My son was 23. I was 27, playing 40, whatever. My husband, Sullivan Walker, he's dead now. He's 52. You know, so this is it. This is the lady that brought me to the party. I speak well. Juilliard didn't get me speaking well. I unlearned my British vowels, you know? So, yeah, I was going to end up playing as many hoes as I may have wanted to play in my youth. I wasn't going to play that many hoes.
Well, a good hoe's an awful lot of fun.
It is, girl. And I finally did play a good hoe. And she was fun. She was big fun. That's what Burt Reynolds taught me everything I knew about being on set. That was really fun. He was such a lovely gentleman and is a lovely gentleman. So I've always been grateful when I get to play non-professionals because, you know, I've got this, people think I'm serious, they don't think I'm funny, they don't think I'm wacky, because I got this professional demeanor, I'm always in charge. And part of me is that, I guess. You know, you don't fight the feeling because that's part of who I am. But this business will brand you. This business will brand you. And it's very difficult. It's easier to unbrand yourself, to expand your brand in the theater. It's almost impossible to do it in television and film because that's what they want. They want to put you in that hole, and that's who you are. Hard to break out. nice. That's why I love what I'm doing now in middle of nowhere, because it's kind of expanding. I did something called, did you see Ugly Betty? Did you see some of Ugly Betty? That was Jimmy. That's Annie's husband that directed that. Jimmy called me and said, "You want to play this prison dyke that Judith Light. He becomes your prison bitch." And I go, "Yeah, yeah, yeah."
Because we'd had her over to the house and he knew what she was really like.
Absolutely. There is a prison dyke in here, let me tell you.
You sported some mean
I
cornrows.
did, girl, and some mean tattoos. But did you notice one of my tattoos was actually an ohm? It was how I was like, I counted the energy. I'll tattoo it up, but they'll be like sacred, but nobody will know. I actually did that. I thought, okay, no, but that'll be my secret. This is just, I'm going to do it, go all the way, but, I've got a secret in this. But I like when I get the opportunity to break out, sure, because the business will brand you. And I guess you're lucky. That's when you're very lucky. That means you're working. As my mama says, those would be high-class problems when you want to do other kinds of roles. It means that you're getting roles. Mm-hmm. And I do not ever lose sight of that when I want to poo-poo on one of those offers that come along that says, like this one that just came, and I'm playing a police chief, and I go, okay, I can do this in my sleep. But it's a 4-5 show arc with a great surprise. And so it's best to always be grateful. There's not a day. I worked until 4:20 on Friday morning, Friday. And yesterday was a wash. You're so tired. But there's not a moment on set. We pulled down some stupid hours. We'd work 16, 17, 18-hour days. That there's never a moment that I am on set that I'm not grateful to be there. Grateful. There's not a goddamn thing that could make me, because I could be doing office work or something, that waiting till Friday to live, waiting till Friday and hating to go back on Monday. I've never had one day in my life of that. And that, I am so grateful. When I say I'm lucky, it's because it seems that what the universe wanted me to do and what I want to do are one. That's luck. Aren't you guys getting bored? We're almost done. Maybe one more.
And what are your goals in the future? For example, do you want to direct or create your own show or movie?
I'm producing now. And there are 2 projects that I've just right on the verge of acquiring, which I've brought a bunch of things to the network level, and they haven't been made. I did deliver a film to Hallmark called The Accidental Friendship. So I'm producing. And as it turns out, I love to produce. I love taking an idea from inception all the way. It's so creative. The Accidental Friendship was an article in the LA Times that I read, and I thought, oh, this is so interesting. You find the people, you get the rights, you find the writers, you do the treatment, you pitch it, you sell it, you shoot it. It's great. It's fun. Because I'm good at it. So I'm producing, and I'm a writer. I owe some writing before I die. I owe the planet some writing, I think. So that's happening. I'm a mom. Boy, that's delicious. That's the real gig. So yeah, all of those.
Adrienne very much enjoyed your role as Shambhala Green
Yeah,
on Law
I
and
liked her
Order. Can you please tell us how you prepared for that role?
I was young and fearless, and willing to take bite marks out of the scenery. And Dick Wolf, those were the days when Dick Wolf was wonderful back then because he gave actors great words, great words. She was a great character on the page. She was most times she was wrong. She was so wrong and so righteous. You know, she was like a pit bull. Once you got something, I loved that character. And Michael Moriarty was, everyone said he was really a tough one, but oh my God, Michael and I, we had so much fun going at each other. And I was so fearless. It's so important to be fearless as an actor. And I'll tell you, we had so much fun going after each other. Everyone was treating him so reverentially. And I showed up and I had no sense of respect for him whatsoever. We were both gonna just get down and dirty. And he loved it and loved our scenes. So much so he went to Dick Wolf because our sparring was sexy. It was so passionate that it was actually sexy. That he went to Dick Wolf and tried to actually have a romantic relationship with Shambhala Green. Can you see it? And Dick would have none of it. He would have none of it. That brand, they didn't want anything.
Well, was that 20 years ago? I bet there weren't any interracial relationships on TV then.
Very few. And I had those dreadlocks. People say, how do you work? I said, live your life, stand at the center of your truth, own your being, and you'll work.
Yeah.
Because I had dreadlocks when no one had dreadlocks and said, how do you work with those dreadlocks? I said, you just work. You grow your locks and you work. You shave your head and you work. You paint it dyed green and you work. You walk into a room with that green hair and you go, I'm here. Now what? Let's work. Let's do it.
You looked really good in the dreads, though.
I know. I'm going there again, though. That's another part. But you got to be fearless in this business for the young actors. You got to be fearless. Talking about agents, I remember right before I left my agent, there was a film called Biko with Denzel that I wanted to do. They were shooting it in England. They came here for one day, and my agent at the time couldn't get me in. They went back to England. I found out who the casting person was. I'll never forget it. Susie Figgis. Whenever I see her name scroll in an English film, I remember it. Susie Figgis. I got on the phone. I called their office and pretended to be my agent. Submitted myself from the United States. Sent my resumes. Was in contact back and forth with the casting office. To be seen, selling myself as my agent. Ultimately, they said we had to go with a European because of funding. But I'd gotten that close to it. And that's when I left my agent, because I think, if I can do it, you can't? Not so much. You've got to go someplace else. Be fearless, be fearless, be fearless. Last one.
Last one. We've covered some of this before, but this is such a lovely compliment. I thought you might want to hear this, and if you have anything else to say about this. Marta also says, I have an acting process question. Would you speak to how you prepare vocally, physically for a role? You embody such strength and authority in your eyes and voice, yet you were also so powerfully contained and in control. while you own the scene. How you do that?
The subtext has to be as important, if not more important, than the text. And the subtext is what separates good actors from great actors, bad actors from good ones. The subtext and the facility to have an imagined world be absolutely real. Because here's the reality. The psyche does not know the difference between imagined and real. That is the physical truth. Your psyche does not know the difference between pretend and real. So when I live in this imagined world of my creation, I know that my body doesn't know the difference. And so I surrender it up unto its reality for the moment. There is a part of me that is always the observer that knows when to end it. But you surrender. You must surrender all unto it. And so the quiet moments are not quiet. They're not quiet to you. Your text, your subtext in this medium is more important than the text. And with a director like Ava, that gives you the space to honor the subtext fully. In television, you've got to truncate your subtext because they're going to change the channel. But when you get an opportunity, that was the gift of this film, to honor the subtext. Ava kept saying, don't feel the need to push the story along. Don't feel the need to say the words. Don't rush the moment. To have the opportunity to go through all of the entire dialogue internally that eventually gives way to how much. All you say is how much. But what gets you from there to there, that gets capped off by how much, is the gift. And your subtext gets strengthened by the quality of your living. How big can you live? How much passion can you hold? Because an actor, ultimately, the vessel of the actor is meant to be strong enough to withstand the download. And you must keep a strong body and a strong psyche for that downloading. Because the stronger you are, the greater the energy can find expression through you. But it is tangible. It is tangible. You must actually have the strength to hold it and direct it. And as you surrender to it, it is not for the faint of heart.